What's going on today, Internet? Selfish here with Retrospect, and today we are going to take a look at the TrimUI Smart Pro. This just showed up in my mailbox, so let's go! This is the TrimUI Smart Pro. Well, actually, it's the box for the TrimUI Smart Pro, which, by the way, is a nice box. This thing is pretty nice. Gives you a couple of stats on the back. Tells you that it's got joysticks, obviously. It does have dual speakers in it as well. It doesn't say that on the box, but it says it somewhere, I'm sure. I've never owned a TrimUI device. I'm kind of excited. Check this thing out. All right. We have a piece of paper that lists off the number and how to do a firmware update. Awesome. Hopefully we don't have one of those right away. We got our little fluffer that stops everything from hurting the device. And we have a USB Type-A cable. It's a pretty basic box we got there. Not a whole lot of stuff. All stuff, no fluff. And here she is. Oh, it feels nice. It's got a good texture to it. I really like how this feels. It feels pretty good in the hands. Interesting. Might have an issue with this D-pad, though. We'll see. Get the stuff out of the way. Let's start off. Nobody has influenced anything in this video. It's just a random gestation of my thoughts based on years of education working in the technology industry. Nobody gets to see this video before I put it out. I might not even edit it. We don't know. And let's go. Let's start off the top like we always do. We do have our volume up and down, a host out, which I'm guessing is an OTG. We do have a power button, and we do have our left and right shoulder buttons, which are micro switches. Ooh, these are stiff. These L2 and R2 buttons are stiff. Cool. All right, nothing on the left or the right hand sides. On the bottom down here, we do have a 355 headphone hole. We also do have a micro SD hole or TC card slot hole. It has a 128 card in it, which is the most basic of basic cards. We're gonna have to replace that thing right away. Otherwise, this thing probably won't work for more than just this viewing. We do have a microphone hole, which is kind of neat, I guess, if you want to do some online, because this does have built-in Wi-Fi. We do have our Type-C hole for charging. And then we have our FN button, which I believe is what puts this thing into overdrive, but I'm not sure. Or else it just controls the lights. I don't really know. And they did put a spot on here for a lanyard for some reason. Now, I know what this looks like, but I'm not sure what's behind this. It looks to me like they put an HDMI connector in here and then decided that they couldn't get it to fit with the board. And instead of redesigning this case that they had, they just put a plug in there. That would be my guess. Or they were having a hard time getting a Wi-Fi signal out, so they needed to put something different. But this actually, by the looks of it, might even be thicker when you feel it. It might even be thicker than the actual walls of the device, so I'm not sure that that would be for the Wi-Fi, Bluetooth type of stuff. This device is gonna get dirty though. And moving right along. On top, we have a domed D-pad with micro switches. It feels good. You're not gonna get multi-inputs. I'm more worried about it being too small and when you're trying to play with it. But we'll find out. Bigger ABXY buttons. Here we have our joysticks, which don't have R3, L3, but they feel okay. They have a decent amount of travel for how inset they are. They are Vita-style joysticks. Our menu button, and our start and select. And then these here around the joysticks that I forgot to mention are actually LED bulbs. You don't really get to set them however you want. They go by whatever system it is that you're playing, in my understanding, though that could easily be fixed with a software update. All right, let's get her started up. And also, while it's starting, we do have our speaker holes down here. There are two 1-watt speakers that are in here. And actually, real quick on that note, we will go over the specs real quick. This is running a Linux operating system. It does have an Allwinner A113P or the A113 Plus 1.8 gigahertz processor. It's running an Imagine PowerVR GE8300 GPU at 660 megahertz. It's rocking a 4.96 IPS screen with a resolution of 720 by 1280. It does have 1 gig of LPDDR4X RAM. It's got 8 gigs of storage built into the device itself. It does have Wi-Fi, like I mentioned. There is two 1-watt stereo speakers on here. It has a 5,000 milliamp battery, which they say is 5 hours. We'll see how that goes. And it has expandable storage up to 256 gigabytes. All right, now that we got everything figured out about the device, let's take a look at the menu system real quick before we get into some games. So this actually has a setup menu system for you where they've separated some things. So you have your Famicom multi-cartridges, if you're not familiar, the 2-in-1 and 401, 301, 501 cartridges that you can buy. They still sell similar things to this day. So you can get them for a Game Boy Advance and Game Boy and pretty much anything, NES. Then you have a Pokemon collection that has just a collection of Pokemon games here. Pretty cool. And these go through all the different Nintendo systems that are available on this device that you can play Pokemon on. On top of that, you have a vertical shooter, which is probably the coolest one out of here. and this will give you the ability to play devices in Tante mode. Now, this may not be the most comfortable way to play this, or the easiest way to play it, but you do get the closest to the original arcade screen by doing it this way in Tante mode. So it's pretty cool that they have this built in, so you don't need to go through and make any changes in RetroArch. It's already set up for you. You just go into that vertical shooter, and you can come in and play any game that's vertical like this that was originally like this for the arcade. Alright, let's move along. Just kind of wanted to show that to you. So let's go through a couple systems here real quick and show you some demos, and then we'll get on with the day. We got Donkey Kong Country going here on Game Boy Advance. It does add the screens on the side here for you. Looks pretty good. This actually is pretty much an advanced machine. You don't really get huge bezels thanks to the way the screen's set up. And we'd probably be better off on a straight 4x3 screen to play advanced games on here, because this is kind of an advanced monster. That'll give you an idea what Game Boy Advance looks like. Move right along. Here's Sonic Adventure 2 on Dreamcast. This works splendidly on this device. Looks really good, runs really smooth. No problems at all. Next up, I got a little Cruisin' USA on Nintendo 64. Now, this is a game that typically has a hard time playing on a lot of these systems, and it does really well on here. There's a lot of Nintendo 64 games that struggle with this, so it's kind of surprising that this does as well as it does, but this will give you at least an idea, because usually if you can push this, you can push just about anything on N64. The only game that seems like it doesn't want to play on N64 is Mario 64. Okay, maybe not the only game, but the game that seems to run really slow. It doesn't seem like it's skipping frames or anything like that, it's just running really slow on this device. I'm not sure why that is, because that's usually one of the easier ones to run, especially over Cruisin' USA. Here we got Mario Kart on Nintendo DS using Drastic. This works well. We can swap screens too. So if you use Drastic on something like the Mio Mini Plus, anything like that, you would kind of have a similar experience. This won't do your top-down unless you're in Tanto mode, but you wouldn't want to play this game like that. Here we are playing Need for Speed on PSP. We're running 2x resolution. Working really well. Looks good. Plays fluently. I'm trying to see if there's any like weird issues with the buildings, because sometimes you'll see that on this game, but I don't see anything with the windows, which is usually where I notice it. If somebody notices it, let me know in the comments, but I don't see anything on here right now that's really throwing me off. Pick the slowest car. Alright, let's move along. Because somebody's going to ask, here's God of War. It's actually running about 10 frames per second too slow, even if you put some frame skipping on here. So if you've never played this game, it might be okay. It seems really slow to me, now that I've used this beginning part to test so many of these, but there it hiccuped a little bit. So if this is something that you can dig, you might be okay with it. There are plenty of other PSP games, just like Need for Speed, that'll work just fine. But you don't need necessarily to play God of War. I know a lot of people are going to want to. I really wish PSP and like maybe even Vita worked really well on here, because this is more or less just set up like a Vita with these Vita joysticks on here. Let's check out the next one. This is Mortal Kombat on PS1. One last thing about the PSP before I forget is this version of PPSSPP doesn't have retro achievements built into it. So you're going to have to go with all retro achievements on PPSPP unless there's an update, or I'm sure somebody can figure out how to load the file on there. I'm sure I could probably do it. I haven't tried it yet, but this works great. So I believe we are running, yeah, we're running at regular resolution, so. Move on. Apparently I just die every time I do a demo on that. Just a couple left. This is Need for Speed Hot Pursuit on PS1. For some reason the joystick's not set up on PS1, so I'm gonna guess that we probably need to go in and do that. It also thinks that this is an Xbox controller, which is fine, because that's actually how it's mapping right now. And that works pretty good for the mapping on this. You just gotta remember where your A and B buttons are, and all that shenanigans. The PS1's a beautiful system on here. I didn't find any games yet that didn't work on here. I'm sure there are some, but PS1's usually kind of an easy one to push. It used to be kind of the gold standard of, can you play PS1? Now the gold standard is, can you play Dreamcast and GameCube? This is not gonna play one of those two, and that standard fits in pretty well with this here. PSP is kind of part of that standard too. Can it play PSP? And it sort of can. It doesn't play it perfectly, but you know, some games you can run at 2x resolution too, so it's kind of a crapshoot. All right, well, now that I took myself out of the race, so that's what I got for you. It's a really comfortable device. This thing is fun to hold. It's pocketable, and the only reason why I'm saying that, even with the size, is that these joysticks are so small and so indented that you could put this in your pocket without it getting hooked on your pants. You wouldn't really have to worry about it. Even if it did, they have a really smooth top on them. Like, not so smooth that your fingers fall off, but it's smooth, fall off the sticks, but smooth enough you'd be able to pull it out of your pocket no problem without causing any issues. And these are obviously smaller, they're not going to get stuck. Also, everything on here is on a micro switch, so you're going to do less damage that way. The operating system seems to work just fine. My experience with TrimUI devices is that the community tends to get behind them, at least from what I've seen. I've never actually demoed one of these before, but my assumption is that we're just at the tip of the iceberg, because we just started seeing some pretty cool stuff for the TrimUI Smart. So now with the TrimUI Smart Pro, I'm not sure how much can transfer over from that, if anything, but I think that we're going to see the community get behind this because this is a really solid device. It's powered to do far more than it's doing right now. This device feels like it can handle a lot more. It just needs some optimization. So I'm really hoping to see something from the community real shortly. And I know that some of these were sent out to some of those developers before they came out to everybody else, so we might see a really quick turnaround. There are a couple things I don't like about the device. This D-pad is really small. It does work really well. I can't complain about that part, but it is so tiny. And when you need to use it, it's kind of awkward a little bit. Also, these sticks are, I know they seem like they're in the right place, but it does get uncomfortable after a while, mostly because this isn't very ergonomic. I would have liked to have seen like a Ambernick ergonomic type back on here where, you know, it's kind of pulling your hands a little bit, or something like you see on like G Cloud, or you see on the AYN Odin, which is slightly bigger than this, but the same idea, because you kind of want your hands like that in order to be able to use these joysticks. And I think after this gets a little bit of TLC from the community, we're going to see more games that can use those joysticks. Lastly, the shoulder buttons are really stiff to push in, like dreadfully hard to push in comparison to devices we've seen before. And this very well could be because I'm going from the RG405V to this TrimUI device, and the 405V, you can just look at the shoulder buttons and they will click themselves and start scrolling through menus on you on accident, where this you really have to put some force behind it. But when you're doing games like Cruise and USA, for one, the gas pedal's on the left, which is crazy to me. I'm not sure why it's mapped that way, but you can obviously move it. But if you're constantly pushing on them, you're putting a lot of effort into it. And you don't really want to do that for a long period of time. But other than that, I think it's really cool, like this Pokemon thing, like having all the Pokemon collection. I've seen Doom and Wolfenstein collections on a lot of devices. You can make your own Pokemon collections on a lot of devices, but I haven't seen one already pre-built for you, which is awesome. But yeah, what do you think? What do you think of the TrimUI Smart? Do you think somebody's going to put some time into it, make it run everything that it can? Also, do you think that we can figure out what this little button down here is for? And maybe if this was supposed to be an HDMI port, the community can take advantage of this, and maybe we can come up with something out of there. Because I'm guessing we're running our video out of the top here. I might just get around to trying that. I will go throw a link in my thingamabob if you want to go take a look at this. They range around $80, which I think is a pretty decent price for this. It might seem a little expensive for what you're getting as far as the game selection goes, but for reliability and a horizontal handset with a screen like this, I mean, this screen's beautiful. I think it would be money well spent, especially when the community gets behind it. So maybe you just want to wait and see what the community does. Possibly what I would do if I was in your situation. But anyways, that's all I got for you today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video with your friends. Sharing helps grow the channel, and my wife says I'm more of a grower than a shower. So help a brother out. Share it with your friends. Thanks for watching. Oh, hi there. You got to the end credits. Awesome. Thanks for watching so long. There's a subscribe button floating around down here if you want to get content more often. Only 1% of my repeat viewers are subscribed, so you could be a 1%er. Also, there's a couple other videos I tossed up over here in case you want to watch something else. Anyways, that's all I got for you today. I'm out.